Today's big announcement is I'm introducing the Redwood Startup Fund, which is a $1 million fund focused on investing in startups that are based on RedwoodJS. 25 to 50K checks will go to each startup, and I'm hoping to deploy this money over the next 12 months. Now, there's a few things that I want to accomplish with this money. First of all, I'd like to help more startups explore more territory more quickly. This is RedwoodJS's mission. And until now, we've been able to provide software, documentation, community, connections, advice, and support, but we've always had to stop short of providing money. Now that we have this fund available, we're going to be able to go all the way. The second thing is, I'd like to increase the diversity of founders in the Redwood community. Over the last 6 months, startups based on RedwoodJS have been able to raise over $19 million in funding. But the founders of these companies are primarily white and male. And I'd like this to change. I'd like Black developers, female developers, minoritized developers in the community to have more of a chance to spend time working on their startup ideas. So if that fits you, then definitely we want to hear from you. I'd also like to encourage climate-focused software startups. Climate change is one of the most existential problems of our time, and we need more startups working on this problem. I think Redwood can be a really great framework for those types of startups to use in tackling climate change. Now, this fund will be an extension of the work that I'm doing at Preston Warner Ventures, which is the vehicle that I use to do all of the angel investing in tech companies. I've invested in companies like Stripe, Netlify, Sneak, Prisma, Supabase, PlanetScale, Gitpod, Railway, and others in the tech community ecosystem, as well as a variety of climate-focused startups. Now, with the Redwood Fund, I'd like to go broader than that, not focus on any specific segment. And to do that, I'll be bringing in partners and experts in other fields to help us evaluate the various companies that come in and would like to receive money from the startup fund. We don't have all of this figured out yet, but if you visit redwoodstartupfund.com, you'll be able to sign up to an email list where as soon as we have some of these details ironed out about how you can apply and what exactly the terms might be on early stage funding, that's exactly where you'll hear it first. And speaking of that, I'd really like to focus on not just medium stage startups, people that already have the technology in place, but really make money available for startup founders that are just getting started on the journey. So maybe you have an idea, but you're working on your main job or you're doing freelancing on the side and you just don't have time to set aside to explore that idea. If we can put a 25K check in your hand that can free up your time to be able to work on your startup idea, the Redwood Startup Fund is designed to make that possible as well. But we'll also reserve 50K checks for companies that have been around for a little while and need to really kick off a seed round or pre-seed round, and especially those that need advice or connections. These are things that we hope to supply with the Redwood Startup Fund. So this is what happens today. This is my big announcement for today. And I hope that if you have an idea and you want to explore it with RedwoodJS, that you'll do so, start with the tutorial and go from there. And when you're ready, give us a call and we'll talk about funding.
Let's say I wanted to make a startup and I haven't decided what I want to do yet. Is there anything I should avoid? Are there certain industries that you would prefer not to fund and that I should avoid building my startup in that industry? Like if I wanted to serve banner ads to other sites.
Yeah, so I'm not personally a huge fan of ad-based startups. Now, I don't think that that would be necessarily a disqualifying characteristic for the Redwood Startup Fund. I think that that potentially could be okay. In most of my angel investing so far, I invest in companies that charge customers directly or charge businesses directly because I'm not a big fan of ad-driven companies. It tends to disalign the focus of the startup with the customers that are being served. And that can be challenging, as we constantly see in companies like Twitter and Facebook, you know, obviously huge, successful companies, but they're fraught kind of with negative social side effects. And a big part of that is because their business really is not serving their end user. It's driving ad sales. And so that's why I tend not to invest in those kinds of companies. So I will always encourage everyone out there who's working on a startup to find a way to charge your actual customer instead of charging businesses to run ads.
Love it. Tom, we have some questions coming in. Also, we wanted to make this an open discussion. I'm going to start inviting members of the RedwoodJS core team and also members of the Redwood Startup Club, which is something we could talk about as well, just to come up and you're welcome to ask questions. We can talk about your experience building startups with Redwood. And I think there's a Q&A as well, if anyone has that going on. So we want to move this to an open discussion and keep asking and answering the questions that you have about what the Redwood Startup Fund is for.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, I haven't been looking at the chat because I've been trying to look at my camera. But if there are questions that anyone has around this, please do ask them. Otherwise, we'll just start bantering about startups and whatnot. Were there any questions so far?
I see one in the Q&A. Are projects around civic rights and duty of any interest?
Absolutely. That sounds great. I love civic interest and duty. I think, it's really a very broad, it can really be anything. I primarily have invested in developer tools because that's my deepest experience. That's where I know the market best. And so I've tended to operate there because I don't do investing as a full-time job. I do it as kind of a side project. And so I don't have time to really steep myself in the intricacies of every industry. But with the startup fund, I want to be able to invest more broadly. And so I'd love to at some point put together kind of a panel of people to help evaluate companies to bring in more of those broad industry experiences so that we can intelligently invest in different areas. And I do know quite a few people that I can pull in for expert advice on some of these matters from time to time when I need to. So really anything goes, anything that has Redwood as a primary component in the stack to me is fair game. This money to me is trying to be win-win around helping me broaden my investment portfolio and especially trying to help some of those groups that I mentioned before to increase the diversity in the Redwood community, but also in my own portfolio. And so doing that means considering a broader set of things. People build startups around what they know. And if I intend to increase the diversity of founders in the community, that means funding things also that I don't know as well.
Well, and Tom, why don't, again, for context, I don't think people know about Preston Warner Ventures, right? So really, Preston Warner Ventures has been the funding sponsor for RedwoodJS. You covered that in the announcement on Monday. But Preston Warner Ventures is really, it's very mission-based. And that's also influencing what you want to do with the startup fund.
Yeah, you can go to PrestonWarnerVentures.com if you want to learn more about Preston Warner Ventures and what we do there. So angel investing is only part of it. Actually, the bulk of our work and the most money that goes out the door is around climate change. So we do a lot of funding around progressive politics and climate action through direct grants to companies that are working on climate action, and then through American politics primarily, because that's where we live. But politics becomes one of the biggest levers for affecting climate change. We need to operate at a scale really that only large governments can do. And so we do quite a bit of action around progressive politics.
So I've invited up on stage, not everyone's able to join us, but members of the Redwood core team, members of the Redwood Startup Club. So this is a network for founders that are building using Redwood in their tech stack. And hello, everyone. There's so many more of you that I know couldn't make it, but please jump in with your questions as well as your experience. Like, what are you excited about other potential founders to experience when they join not only this project, but this community?
There was another question in the chat here too. Is Web3, like a protocol or DAO, interesting to you? Would it make a difference if it was on an environmentally conscious blockchain like Solana?
Interesting. Web3. I also have not really done a lot of investments in crypto, not specifically. I have my concerns about cryptocurrencies, blockchains, especially around some of the environmental stuff, as was hinted at here. But it is interesting technology. I think we're still searching for the right ways to deploy that technology outside of strictly financial vehicles, which I personally don't find super interesting. I like things that are trying to change people's lives in kind of fundamental ways outside of finance. But again, if it's a really interesting idea and you can show some positive social impact, some utility to it that is real, then the underlying technologies to me are less important. It's about the outcomes of the strategy. So whether you use traditional web to normal stuff, or you want to leverage blockchain in some way and have people log in through Solana or some other system, then that really is a secondary point for me. It's about like, what's your long-term vision? What are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to serve? And if it seems plausible that there's a large market of people that can be served well in that capacity, then by all means, like Web3 can be part of that. I don't think that I would invest in a company just because they're using Web3 technologies. That's not how I think about any of these things. It's not strictly that way. Which is ironic because I'm like, oh, but you have to use Redwood. Yeah, but that's because, we created Redwood. So deal with it. And as far as using a more energy efficient blockchain, yes, that would be preferable. I think people's energy should in general migrate towards using blockchains that actually care about climate change, the environment, energy use. These things do matter and they do add up.
I remember you told me once that sort of the lens you view technology through is if it gets us one step closer to the Star Trek replicator, then it's good.
That's right. Well, really anything on Star Trek, right? Like you watch an episode of Star Trek and you're like, oh, wow, look at those computer interfaces, or look at, they have this replicator, they have this teleporter, they have a society that is actually livable for people, for instance. Then like all of those things we don't have currently, but we want them. Like that's a really interesting future vision. And it's always amusing to me when people are like, man, all the good startup ideas are taken. Like all the ideas have already been done. And I'm like, no, just go watch an episode of Star Trek and think about what are the companies that would need to exist on the path to a replicator existing, or a teleporter existing, or some kind of interface or experiences that they're having on there that we would look at and be like, wow, that's so futuristic and amazing. In order to get to something like that, there's 1,000 smaller steps that we have to make along that journey. And any of those could potentially be a startup idea. There's another question I see here. Are you interested in apps that use Redwood as a backend for React Native apps? Yeah, totally. If you're just using the RedwoodJS API side and you're not using any of the front end stuff, totally fine. Like that makes Redwood a primary part of your stack. And we think that that's actually a really first-class way to use Redwood, is to only use it as a GraphQL API. That's such a huge part of our focus with the framework, and something that we spent a lot of time on. And if that's what you're doing, you don't really have a web presence, or you want to use Next.js as your sort of front end, and that reads from a GraphQL Redwood backend. Also, we have a bunch of startups in the community currently that do that. They'll have a Redwood front end side, they'll have a Next front end side that are all communicating via GraphQL to the backend. So yes, that is appropriate. There's a question about the timeline here. I'd say within a month or so, I'm hoping to be ready to take applications, and that gives people a little bit of time to maybe start working on something. So that will be, now that 1.0 is out, I just haven't been able to focus on anything while we've been leading up to 1.0. My entire life has been sort of revolving around this week and getting 1.0 out the door. So hopefully now in the coming weeks, I'll have some time to sit down and actually say, oh, okay, here's what terms I think I can offer that make sense for the fund. Here's a way that we can do applications. Here's how we're going to evaluate companies in a fair and transparent way, et cetera. Rob, it's more fun when you read me the questions.
Oh, there.
Okay.
The question you predicted, Tom, has come. I took a stab at it, but what's the difference between the funding you announced on Monday and the funding you're announcing today?
I know it's confusing. Pick $1 million for each of these. So the Monday funding is for Redwood itself. So that's to pay people to work on Redwood, the framework, so that we can continue accelerating the pace of development of RedwoodJS itself, right? So some of the people here, for instance, to work more on Redwood, or to pay for marketing, or to pay for sponsorships in conferences, whatever we need to do to increase visibility in Redwood and continue working on the code of Redwood, the framework itself, as if RedwoodJS was a startup. So that first one is like, let's pretend RedwoodJS itself is a company and a startup. That's an investment in that startup that is RedwoodJS itself. The funding today is for other people's companies that are building, but building using RedwoodJS in order to build their startup. So yes, I realized at one point that this would be potentially confusing to people, and hopefully that helps resolve that issue.
Someone asks if we are hiring developer advocates. Would love to see more content. Only see Next.js and Remix nowadays.
Yeah, we could do a better job of producing more content. Absolutely. We've been so focused on some of the code, but potentially, yes. I think that over the next few months, you might see some job positions for Redwood. And we'd love to increase the diversity of the Redwood core team. As you may notice, not perhaps the most gender diverse set of people you've ever seen. And this is top of mind for us. And it turns out that one of the best ways to do that is to purposefully go out and find the kind of people that you want on your team and hire them and pay them money to work for you. This is just kind of a reality. And it's something now I'm hoping that this money will make more possible. So absolutely, yes.
Someone asked, are there any particular features of Redwood you'd be interested in people showing off? Velocity comes to mind.
I don't know that that's necessarily a part of the equation as far as the funding goes. I would love people to show off all of the awesome things about Redwood. I'm not completely sure what you mean by velocity.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means either.
Maybe
Mark, let us know what you meant by velocity there. Another one, is there a defined period of time to launch the startup? Like 1 year to launch or something like that?
No, I mean, it's like funding any company. You can come in at any stage and say, here's my idea. Here's what I intend to do. Here's what I've done so far. Here's what I know about this market that other people might not know. Here's why I think people are going to love this service and why it's going to make money and have a future. And that could be at any stage. And you could have an idea that takes 2 years to execute to where it's, like Redwood took 2 years to get to a 1.0. Like some ideas just take longer than others to go to market. So there's not, for me, a specific timeline on when a company would need to launch. It's more about the idea itself, the people behind the idea, what you've done so far. Do you have traction? Like, depending on what stage you are, things can be different. And I want to focus some of the money specifically on ideas where there really is very little work already done, but enough to show promise, where you won't be able to show traction at all. But I'd love to also include some companies that have been out there for a little while, have traction, and just need to go a little bit further or want to be more hooked into our network.
Okay, here's a long one in the Q&A thing. Maybe off topic, kind of regarding the Redwood marketing strategy. Since the new site launched, it seems that startups became the main target audience. I understand Tom's passion, but Redwood is a technical masterpiece and so powerful regardless of user size, including corporate. So do you think that, quote, startup focus would affect, quote, bigger users' view towards Redwood? Let's call it biases.
Yeah, potentially. This is something that we've discussed on the core team as we've talked about our mission, like how we want to position ourselves in the market. To me, this marketing angle around startups is not intended to exclude anyone. It's really more of a hook to say, okay, Redwood is good for startups. That means certain things. So what does that mean? That means that if you have an idea and you want to turn it into a company, then Redwood is going to be sufficient for you to do that. So it's going to have certain characteristics, like it's going to be capable of building the applications for a proper company, which is not true maybe of every framework. Some frameworks are designed more for rapid prototyping, or are really good at hackathons. They don't come with a lot of the built-in kinds of integrations that Redwood does, right? So this is to say, look at Redwood. What's unique and interesting about Redwood to me is the deep integration of a suite of tools that makes Redwood perhaps a bit more complicated to think about and start with than some other solutions. And especially using GraphQL as the transport protocol automatically makes Redwood a bit more complex from the beginning. But what we think is that in the long term, having this great separation of concerns via GraphQL, having these integrations that come out of the box will all prepare you for the long-term ride that is a startup, right? And so when I say Redwood is the app framework for startups, I'm hoping that if a large company and enterprise looks at that and says, oh, Redwood's for startups, well, we have this new project that we want to build within the company, and we're evaluating JavaScript or TypeScript frameworks for that. And they see that Redwood focuses on being useful and capable for startups, then they'll say, well, this team of 3 people within our company is basically a startup or acting like a startup. And so maybe it can be really effective for that team as well. And then for anyone that's working on a side project or wants to just start some experiment, they can say, well, yeah, this is a side project, but I have ambitions. I would love someday for this to become a startup. For those people, it can be very nice to start with a technology that they know can grow with them, or that is going to provide the utilities that they need, or the characteristics, the structures that they need, should one day it become successful and now they need to hire a team of people and they need to have multiple clients, like a mobile client or desktop client, and that they know that they're not painting themselves into a corner with a solution that is much more limited in its scope. They know that, like, oh, it could someday be a startup. Redwood seems like they're positioned well for that. And so to me, the startup angle can capture both of those sides, but communicates that we're more than just a toy framework or some simple little infrastructure piece that you might use. That's the intention with the startup-based focus.
Yeah, and I just want to add one more highly strategic aspect to what we're trying to do. And it's a fantastic question, and we get it a lot and talk about it. But when we observed, and there's a lot of them on stage right now, people really early on building a side project that they took it to revenue or raise funding to build a company. And when we observed the feedback loop between supporting those initiatives and those people and those types of products, between that and the core team, and the effect it had on Redwood's roadmap, the robustness and the kinds of bugs we were fixing and mitigating ahead of time because of a tight feedback loop between people building startups and the Redwood core team, it had a really incredible enhancement of just the whole ecosystem for Redwood. And that just continues. So we don't mean it to be exclusive, but there really is an accelerant that happens when we tighten the startups themselves building with Redwood and the Redwood core team that's building Redwood. And it's been fantastic.
Another question here, and this is probably to be determined, but how best to present your idea for your startup? Code in GitHub, PowerPoint? Do you have any idea about that yet?
As we discussed during the investor panel, videos are perhaps the best way today to present your startup to potential investor. Take a few minutes, do a demo of what you're working on. For me, it's really useful to see the product. So when I'm talking with companies, I'll get on with them and we'll start talking about their project. They'll have sent me a deck or something, and we could go through the deck, but it's so high level. Like I want to see the stuff. I want to see the demo. I want to see the tool in action. That helps me grasp better the specifics of what they're working on and how they're executing on that. And so, and to be able to see and hear the people presenting is helpful too, just to get a better sense of where they're at in their journey as potential entrepreneurs is helpful. So that's by no means the only way that you could do it. Otherwise, just a thoughtful email with relevant points and calling out what is the most important is helpful too.
Maybe marketing question. How do you position RedwoodJS versus Remix stacks?
So remix stacks, as far as I understand, are kind of a way to add. David, do you want to characterize them?
If you run, this
ahead.
is not an exaggeration. If you run yarn create Redwood app, your directory, you will get at installation time, in most cases, everything you get with a remix stack. So except remix apps are a template that add on those different integrations. Redwood comes with those integrations out of the box, or with setup commands that add those directly.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
am I missing it? Like that's, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's my understanding, is to say remix is one piece of a comprehensive set of tools that you might use to create your application. And different people are going to want different pieces in their full stack in order to do that. And so a remix stack is a collection of those that are kind of put together and integrated in a way. Our solution to that is, as David said, the setup commands across a bunch of different partner companies that we work with very closely, so that we can go back and forth and say, here's what we need. They can say, here's what we're trying to do. And we can both leverage each other's technology as best as possible. And so the Redwood way is to say, oh, you want to use this deployment provider, and you want to use this authentication solution, and you want to use this payment provider. In a couple of command line operations, you can get all of those things, and they'll be integrated well out of the box. That's just the way that Redwood sees the world philosophically, is that that's how you would put together the stack that you want. And so the benefit of that is that we really focus from the core on making sure that those setup commands work really well. We spend a tremendous amount of effort in doing that. And so we're always focusing on making sure that those commands work. I'm not sure what the overall strategy of Remix is as far as maintaining those different stacks and making sure that as those tools evolve that those stacks are based on, that they'll continue being upgraded and used. I know that people can kind of create stacks of their own and create them in an unsupported way. So I think it remains to be seen how that pans out. But I'd say both Redwood and Remix have strategies for giving you the full collection of tools that you want to work with.
Yeah. I feel like we could make Redwood stacks right now. It would just pre-run 3 or 4 CLI commands for you, and we just have various permutations of those, and those would be your stacks, right?
Yeah,
one more question.
So I just wanted to add something to the stack question. So Tom, you and I talked about this when we did the interview a few days ago.
Danny,
really big.
Danny, building Tape SH, Redwood core team member, and Redwood Startup founder. So, see,
yeah,
gotta give people their due, right? You're doing it all since Redwood since version dot 2.
0.5.
Wow,
Yeah.
0.5. All right, Danny, please.
Yeah, so there is a philosophical difference, like Tom mentioned, like one's providing you template code and the other is part of the framework. The advantage of things being part of the framework is that if you're hiring someone or you're looking at code in a completely new project, if it's a Redwood project, it's a lot more likely to always be the same way because it's part of the framework. It's done. We have a set of practices that we try and encourage people to write. You don't have to use it, but you are likely to use it because these are the best practice that we are promoting. So when you jump into a company or a new startup, or you're hiring, I don't know, you're 10 fresh junior developers and they only did the tutorial, they can look at that code base and instantly recognize that. I think that is a really big part of it. So like, especially when you start working on larger and larger teams, as a manager or as a tech lead, that's what you're looking for. Reproducible patterns that you have in your code base, and you're not wasting your time spinning wheels teaching every new person how to write parts of your app.
Maybe one more question here. Mark asked again, are you looking for projects with a Redwood angle? Are there features or aspects of Redwood that are features or aspects that Redwood would enable, which you'd want highlighted?
Again, not I don't know specifically. I think it's more about the idea, the startup idea, the customer base. What's the solution that's being provided that is being done in a better way than has been done before, creates a whole new market. It's not so much about the specifics of the features of Redwood that would be highlighted. I mean, potentially, like if that's something that if you're like, wow, I really like this thing that Redwood does, and that spurs an idea that then lets you leverage that, and you want to tell us in the application process, like, hey, I'm really using this feature of Redwood really well, like check it out, then sure, that might get our interest a little bit more than some others. So it may be an angle for more for getting our interest than for making a final call. But that never hurts.
Yeah, I don't think, I do want to add to that, not that that's probably a qualifier for funding, but if anyone out there is doing something new with Redwood, if you are expanding what you would consider should be a core feature or functionality to Redwood, this was the React Native, Redwood official support for mobile question. Like, we want to work and collaborate with you as much as you want to work and collaborate with us. Like, that is how, so everyone else you're seeing on the stage that, besides Tom and Rob and myself, they have built with Redwood and have expanded the features and capability that Redwood needed to have, and then brought that back to the core of the framework. Like, that's the reciprocity of how this is working. So I think that's a really important aspect of the question you're asking. Funding aside, that's just how we dev this thing. That is our roadmap. So please.
One more question.
Yeah,
What
go for it.
might-
And then we're going to go to the quiz show, okay?
Yeah.
But then we're
Yep.
going to come back for more questions and discussion, because this ain't done yet. That's
Okay.
a good time. Rob.
What mic and webcam are Tom using? Video and voice are so clear.
Silky.
Oh, good.
Silky
Good.
smooth.
I am using a Sony Alpha 6400 SLR camera mounted directly above my old school iMac Pro, one of the dark gray silvery ones that I bought like 5 years ago, and I'm still using because when I bought it, it was like the top notch $7,000 version of this computer. And I was like, I'm going to keep this for at least 5 years, which I've done. So go me. It worked out. And the microphone, this microphone is a, looks like this. This is a Shure Beta B7A microphone.
What are you
Say that
running
again?
that
Kind
through?
of-
Sounds good.
It's kind of a pain because it is one that requires a preamp, and the preamp is a little bit annoying because when I plug it into my computer via USB, it always will be the first thing that the computer chooses as an input for both the speaker and the microphone. And so my sound is constantly not working. And I'm like, damn, why can't I hear anything? And it's, because it's trying to play through my stupid microphone. And I don't know what it is about the operating system that really loves to choose this as the primary device. Maybe there's a way to prevent it from doing that. I don't know. I haven't researched it, but I'm constantly unplugging the preamp and just using my AirPods or these Bose. These are amazing. These are my favorite. The Bose noise canceling over-ear headphones, super quality, great for airplanes. But that's my setup. The camera's amazing. I love the camera. The camera's perfect, but also requires a bunch of extra hardware. You have to have an ATEM Mini or some device to receive the HDMI signal from the camera and convert it to USB so that you can pipe it into your computer. Rob told me about most of this stuff. Rob really is
Should
the
have
video
Rob answer the question.
Danny
expert.
said, but this is all Rob's fault. Didn't Sony ever release like webcam drivers for that camera? Did you ever
I don't
check and
know.
see?
Maybe they have since I bought it, but I haven't looked. That would be
Rob-
nice. That would.
Rob gets all his gear, and then he lives vicariously, like, propagating his gear choices through the rest of the team. So,
Yeah.
And then I
pretty
also, but lighting. So don't forget about lighting. Lighting is also important, right? Like, I look good because I have good lighting. It turns out that light is the only thing that a camera captures. And so make sure your lighting is good. These are I forget what brand these are. I'll look it up here in a second. But the one on my right is a lower color temperature. You'll see that it's more yellow on this side and it's more blue on this side. Because I saw like this still from a movie one time, and it was like some alien movie or something, and they're in a spaceship, and it's like all yellowish on this side and really like dark blue on this side. I was like, that looks cool. So then I
They just did that
attempted
in
to-
Picard the other night. They were sitting by a fire, and had a really nice orange glow and then a really cool on one side. Yeah.
All right. You guys find some links for the gear. while we switch over to the Redwood Quiz Show, we have the return of the RedwoodJS Quiz Show. And everyone up here, think about other discussion topics and conversations. We're not done yet. We're just going to take a little break to go to the quiz show, and then we'll come back. And also, if you're in the chat, you're participating over there, we can turn on audio. You could ask questions that way. So as interactive as we want to make this, let's do it. So Rob Cameron, I think this is going to be over to you. You are spotlighted, buddy.
Once again, it's time for the internet's favorite tree-themed JavaScript framework quiz show, the Redwood Quiz Show. I'm your host, Rob Cameron, and you're watching the only quiz show that awards knowledge of the JavaScript framework with fabulous prizes. Show them what to win, Rob. Thanks, Rob. Today's winners will take home an item of their choice from the Redwood shop, including super comfy t-shirts and stylish hats. We'll send you a discount code for 1 free item and free shipping. Proudly turn your body into a walking billboard for RedwoodJS. Back to you, Rob. Thanks, Rob. Before we start, let's talk about how the game works. I'll read a question. It may have a multiple choice answer or be open-ended. It all depends on the question. Who gets to answer? You. Yes, you on this Zoom call. Just raise your hand if you think you know the answer, and my producer, David, will unmute you. If you answer correctly, you win. If not, we'll select the next hand raiser. Okay, everyone ready? Let's get started.
Should we do a practice hand round so everyone can find the hand button, Rob?
Oh, yes, we could do that before we start question one. Let's see. Let's do a practice question. Is everyone ready? I forget what I had a good, nice default practice question.
What also is the Redwood core team allowed to participate? Because I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't make up the rules.
I need to know.
It gets up to my producer.
Man, it feels like. What if we give them one question? One question at the end?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, core team, I'm ignoring you until the final question.
Okay, I'll do a test question now. I don't have a slide for it, but I'll just read it out loud. All right, are you ready? Get ready to raise your hands. The world's tallest tree is a coastal redwood located somewhere in Redwood National Park. True or false?
Okay, we have some hands. Oh, I see hands raising now. That's good. And you know what? I'm just going to pick someone at random here. So Steven, we're going to allow to talk. Steven, true or false? You should be able to talk now.
Steven's
got his hand raised. Well, see, we learned a few things there. Okay, let's go to the next. Oh, there it is. There it is, Steven.
False.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The answer is true.
Oh,
The world's largest tree is named Hyperion. It is 380 feet tall in Redwood National Park.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you for warming us up. All right, Rob, I believe our attendees know exactly how to raise their hands.
All right, here we go. Question one. As we all know, Redwood went 1.0 this month. Tell us, in what month and year did Redwood 0.1 launch? This was the first public release of Redwood. What month and year?
All
I
right.
can't see any hands, so I'm counting on.
I see hands.
Okay.
Olivier, you raise your hand first. You should be able to talk. You can unmute. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. Was it March 2020?
That is correct. March 2020. You get something from the Redwood shop. We'll be in. How are we going to do that, David? We'll be in contact with them later.
Oh yes, I'll follow up. I know Olivier very well.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Question two. You want to display some data from the database. In Redwood, you should use. Hello?
Ma chérie?
Hello? Someone's not muted?
Muted now. That was me.
Okay. You want to display some data from the database. In Redwood, you should use a 1 page, 2 layout, 3 cell, or 4 component. You want to display some data from the database.
All right, Zoran, you are up.
Yeah, number 3 cell, but I suppose all of this can be used, but 3 is the, at least for me, correct?
That is correct. We're looking for number 3. It contains data fetching, loading, error, empty, and rendered component states, all within a single file, unique to the Redwood database, the Redwood codebase.
Zoran,
Congratulations.
well done. I'll follow up with you.
Yeah, thank you. We can go on the chat.
Very good.
Okay.
Question number 3. Name one of the 2 original names for RedwoodJS. If you've come to some of our previous community events, we reminisced about these names, so you may be familiar with one or both of them.
All right, we have Josema. Josema, go ahead.
Hello?
I'm unmuting now.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
go ahead.
One of the first names was Hammer.
That is correct. We also would have accepted Chainsaw. Chainsaw and Hammer were both previous names of RedwoodJS. Congratulations.
Well done. I'll follow up with you.
Question number 4. Redwood brings together the best parts of the JavaScript ecosystem together in one framework for the first time. Which of the following libraries are included and configured for you in Redwood? 1, Webpack. 2, Babel. 3, React. 4, GraphQL Yoga. 5, Apollo Client. 6, Storybook. 7, Jest. 8, TypeScript. 9, React Hook Form. 10, React Hot Toast. 11, MSW. 12, Testing Library. Or 13, all of the above.
All right. Alberto was very quick to the punch on this, probably before the question was answered. Alberto, what do you think?
Of the above, 13.
That is correct. All of the above.
Thank you, Alberto. I'll follow up with you in chat.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Before we get to our final question, here it is, folks, the world premiere trailer for Redwood's latest deploy target. This one made it in just under the wire for the 1.0 release. Let's take a look.
Oh, no. Sound's gone.
Oh, no sound? No sound?
It was coming in and out.
Can you hear me? Oh, is the
I can hear you. I can hear you.
it was coming in a little bit?
Yeah, it got choppy.
Oh, someone says it was there. Okay, let me start over.
Maybe everyone mute just so it doesn't try to duck the sound or something.
There it is. Finally, a deploy option that gets you back on PagerDuty. All right, time for our final question.
Okay, now the Redwood core team is allowed to participate. Is that correct?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, they're going to know these for sure. But yeah, sure.
All right.
It becomes a test of who can click the raise hand button the fastest.
Okay. All right.
Are you ready? Redwood currently has now 7 built-in deployment targets. Name at least 3 of the deploy targets that are included with Redwood.
Ooh, Aditya. Is there anyone else? Okay, we've got Aditya and Kosku. Okay, I feel like yeah, let's let them both have a stab. Aditya, Kosku's gonna go first here. All right, and then there we go. Kosku, can you talk? There you go. Unmute.
Okay, is it
There
good
you
now?
are. Yes.
Okay, I have tried Vercel, Render, Netlify. I know that it can go to serverless AWS,
Okay.
and you just show bare metal.
You nailed it. You nailed it. But now Aditya has to finish. So you named 4. All right. So for sure,
Okay.
I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to follow up with you in the chat, and then Aditya, can you talk? Now you have to finish. You have to finish it off though. You have to hit the last 3.
Okay. It's one serverless, and then maybe fly.io. Did they make it? And what else? Netlify, Vercel, Render,
Look in the chat. Someone's
Fly,
giving you a hint in the chat.
flight control. Okay. What else?
What do you think, David?
There was one more, layer 0. Hey, that was good. And DTA did good. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. And
Yes.
Kosku, well done.
Yes, so we would have accepted bare metal, flight control, layer 0, Netlify, Render, serverless framework, and Vercel. I noticed that bare metal is the first listed here alphabetically. Coincidence? Well, that's our show. Congratulations to all our winners. I'm your host, Rob Cameron. And until next time, here's wishing you passing tests and 5 nines of uptime. Good night, everybody.
Very nice.
5 nines of uptime. Oh, Rob. Oh, Rob.
That's right.
5 nines. You need at least 6 nines. one microsecond of downtime per year.
Yep.
Oh,
No
I
problem
figured
with
out what
bare
my
metal, right?
I figured out what my lights are. I'm posting it here in chat. It's the Loom Cube Edge lights.
Ooh.
I have 2 of them.
Bare metal gives you 9 nines of uptime, guaranteed.
9 nines.
Everyone's so
The guaranteed part is the one I don't believe.
yeah. Sorry, there's the star. There's an asterisk on that. Not actually guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly.
David switched this spotlight view, so I don't know if everyone noticed their view all changed. So you have to go to your upper right and change back to your gallery if that's where you were. But it let us cheat because I wasn't technically sharing my screen, but I still wanted the full screen access. So there's that neat little trick we found. I'll put that trailer on Twitter and YouTube so you can play without all the stuttering, hopefully.
Well, actually, 9 nines gets you 31.5 milliseconds downtime per year. It's more than I expected.
That's a lot of downtime.
All right.
I like
so
that.
What else we got
There's-
going?
Sorry.
Any,
All right,
any more
let's go.
questions?
I'm texting people in the chat, but so those of you on the core team and a part of the Redwood Startup Club, well, one, I did want to talk about the Redwood Startup Club, so we could talk about that. But what do you think of this thing? You knew it was coming. What's your reaction? Do you have any advice for people that may be thinking about building with Redwood? Yeah, dive on in, please.
No one? I'll go again. For me, there's only one simple answer, which I use for everything now, is Shia told me to just do it. So just do it with Redwood, right? It's not even a question. The reason I chose Redwood was because when you're early stage and you don't even know if the product is even a product, I still don't know where it's going to go, right? But when you're that early, you don't know where to start, and you don't want to spend all of your time configuring, and you don't want to spend all of your time thinking about how you're going to do the complicated test cases, and you don't want to spend time worrying about how you're going to fix that little tech debt that you introduced in your testing system 6 months later. So instead, what you do is you focus on building your product. And that is the biggest reason for me that a startup or any sort of project really that's coming off the ground should choose Redwood, because you just get batteries included, decisions made for you. The decisions aren't too hard. If you don't like them, you can change them, but you don't have to make these decisions upfront. And that's, for me, the biggest reason why you should select Redwood for your startup.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of Danny a little bit, but I think one of the biggest things too is just the community of people in this, in the Redwood Startup group and just on Discord, and developers that are all trying to grow and do things together. I know we put a lot of emphasis on that, and we want to make sure that we can continue to grow and help everybody else who's along the way, who's just starting, doesn't really know what they want, doesn't really know how to start, and help give feedback and build them up from the ground up.
Hey, I'll piggyback as well. I just want to say from a sort of business perspective as well that you don't really see when you choose, you don't initially see when you choose Redwood. Like when you're growing an early stage startup, you've got to consider, okay, you're probably going to get some people on board, who your first developer is going to be. And I think having that choice where, well, the choice is already made for you, is going to be a full stack developer. And, those early resources, in other fund, our company, we're hiring this year and we've got to make that decision and it's already made for us. No longer do you have to decide, I'm going to get a back end, I'm going to get a front end, whatever we're going to do. The decision is already made for you. And, obviously hiring is hard, and, the less fragile you can make it is going to be much better for you.
Okay, I'm going to put in a plug for the Redwood Startup Club now that we're at the hour. And we've, behind the scenes, just not talking about it publicly, we've been inviting people that are building projects with Redwood at any stage. So very early side projects but committed to turning that into something that's sustainable long-term. Extremely well-funded startups that are, into their journey. Right. So again, I don't know what series it is, seed, pre-seed, series A. Anyway, we've been inviting those people as we learned about them to join the Redwood core team via a private Slack channel and a workspace to create the Redwood Startup Fund. So it's a network of founders and devs building with Redwood. And we also host a monthly meetup for those founders. That's something that Tom and I host. It's very much a founders supporting founders group, and you get out of it what you put into it. But also it is, and we've watched this happen all this week, it is Redwood core team and Redwood core team founders supporting founders as well. And it's just making everything better. If you are building a startup with Redwood and I've not ever reached out to you, would love to hear from you about what you're building and would love to get you an invite to the Redwood Startup Club. And as of this morning, if you go to redwoodjs.com/startup club, you'll see a form. There'll be more information about this. We'll post in the forums as well. And would love to know what you're building and take a look and get you in the Redwood Startup Club. The only requirement we have at this point in time is that you have Redwood as a part of your tech stack. And again, we are stage agnostic, little bit of gray area, sussing out, like, is this something that's going to be a hobby? Is this something you want to turn into a sustainable business over the long term? You don't need to raise funding. Bootstrapping is phenomenal. Highly recommend bootstrap if you can. So, but just, we want to have that conversation. If you're interested, reach out. There's a link to fill out the form. The David Price, pretty much on all over the internet, is how you could reach me and DM me for questions. We'd love to talk. And most everyone, actually everyone on the stage here, I think everyone's a part of the Redwood Startup Club. And if one of you, Toby, I want to put you on the spot to ask, like, what's it like and how valuable has it been? But if any of you want to jump in, right, it's hard, and going it alone makes it harder. So we don't believe anyone should have to go it alone.
Yeah, the club has been. Who should go?
You, Toby, go.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, so the Startup Club has been great for me. I chose Redwood because it makes it possible for a single developer to build a full app. It enables me to pretend I'm a full stack developer, even though I'm just actually a front end developer. Gives me an API for free to start with, and makes it easy to build out that part as well of my application. And the startup club and in our Slack and the startup thing we have going on in Discord have both been great for me to get some kind of company or community to build with, even though I'm doing it myself. I feel I have a lot of support from those groups.
We got a couple more questions in the Q&A. Should we go to those? Okay. What are the next steps for Redwood now that version 1 is out the door? For example, more deploy targets, support for non-DB based API integrations within the GraphQL, ability to customize more parts of the stack? Question.
One of my top priorities is some solution for server-side rendering. I don't know exactly what that looks like right now, but right now people use Next.js quite a bit as a piece of their front end for those things that require some kind of an incremental build or stale while revalidate behaviors. I would love to be able to do that kind of thing within Redwood. And so that'll be something that we'll be discussing quite a bit here over the coming months.
Here's another one. How to overcome the not made here mentality, especially with startups, since tech is an important differentiator from the competition.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Not made here. So geographically, for example, not made in the US?
Well, isn't it like the not invented here syndrome?
Yeah, not invented here. I would guess like why people that don't want to use Redwood because they'd rather build, their own framework. I don't know. I think it's just continued messaging around these are, if you like the components within the Redwood stack, if these are things that you were thinking about using anyway, if you were going to use GraphQL and you wanted to use React and you had a full stack thing, then like you'll save a lot of time by not doing that on your own. And I think where you have an NIH, not invented here, syndrome at companies, it's messaging and it's continued endorsement by people in the community. It's seeing people being successful using those technologies. All of those things make it harder to justify rebuilding something that's already available as an existing tool, open source or not. And so that's part of our marketing efforts that we'll have to continue doing forever.
Danny, did you want to answer that next one?
Yeah, sure. So this is the question new to RedwoodJS. Notice that creating an app has a front end and an API. Is it possible to have an API with multiple front ends? The simple answer is yes, absolutely. This is what we do on tape. I think the Redwood API side is super, super powerful. It's very customizable. You're in control of the GraphQL side. And then if you want to add a React Native side, a Next.js side, a Remix side, whatever side you want, you can by speaking to the RedwoodJS API. There's nothing that's going to stop you from doing that. The only thing you might miss is some of the niceties that you get with the Redwood website, right? So the built-in way of doing auth, meta tags, well, lots of nice little convenience features. Cells, of course, you might miss those, but there is nothing that's going to stop you from using the RedwoodJS API side directly, in addition to your website with whatever front end you want.
Let's see any other questions in here. Ton, do we have a release date for version 2?
No. However, one thing I would like to do is to be able to release major versions more often than you might expect for a major framework like this. We found throughout the 0 dot phase that we can have high velocity and we can break things if we are careful about making it easy to upgrade. And I'd like to be able to continue the speed with which we've been able to iterate and make breaking changes in order to unlock new awesomeness in the framework. I don't want to lose that now that we're 1.0. And so we focused a lot on doing things like code mods so that you have an automatic way to just run a command and that'll update your code base without you having to do a lot of manual work. And spending a lot of time writing really first-class release notes with guidance around how you upgrade. And I think doing major version releases more often than you usually see would actually be beneficial for people, in that if it's a small set of changes that you need to make, then you're probably more likely to just go ahead and do it versus waiting a year between major releases and then just dumping some massive list of things that you have to do all at once. It's really difficult for people who are focused on building their startup, building features, and maintaining their code otherwise to sit down and say, all right, let's spend the next 2 months updating our code base to just be working on this new framework. Like, this is what we did at GitHub when our new Rails would come out. It would take sometimes 3 or 4 months of work from a team to attempt to adapt the code base to that new version, because there were so many breaking changes, so many little things that had to be done and tested, and it would end up in a branch and it would take months, and sometimes it would have to be abandoned because the main code base had drifted too far away from that branch in the meantime. It was just a horrible experience. And so if we can do major versions more frequently, but with a smaller set of breaking changes, hopefully that can let people manage the upgrade path more seamlessly by just saying, oh, I just need to run these 2 commands and then update this file in a certain way to get to V2. Like, okay, I can do that. That's not so bad. I'll just do that right now. Right. So I would be unsurprised to see a V2 within 3 months, for instance. And as I always say, as the creator of semantic versioning, when people ask me how often they should upgrade, or like what happens, if I make a breaking change, I have to bump the major version. I'm like, yeah, guess what? Numbers are free and they never run out. So like, just do it. Just do it.
Related to that, someone asked, would you consider switching to a scheduled release schedule, like Ubuntu or Chrome, perhaps with beta releases in advance of stable ones?
I don't know. We'll have to talk about that amongst the core team.
Here's what our ongoing release cadence will be. We're gonna release probably a minor version weekly, and we'll get into a better cadence where you'll see the release candidate for the upcoming minor release. I'm imagining it like this. You'll see a release candidate on a Thursday or Friday with the minor release to follow on Tuesday. Our automation and tooling has come a tremendous way. We can release really quickly, and getting the release candidate out within 4 days. Our CI is really working well. So you'll see a lot of minor releases from us. And then the major releases, like Tom said, on a faster clip. But if you're keeping up with Redwood along the way, I don't know if we'll do a major beta for those, aside from like a week or 2 ahead of time. But that's what we're thinking. We'll see what works.
Yeah, I tend to not love being constrained by specific deadlines. I think it's fine. Like, once you know when it's going to be, like for 1.0 release, about a month ago, we kind of settled on this date, and we're like, all right, this is when launch week's going to be, because we had to figure things out and we wanted to get it done. So we drew a deadline, but it wasn't done more than a month in advance. And so having these scheduled releases, like, I don't know how Ruby does it. Ruby always releases like some new version on Christmas, right? like every single year. And it's such a weird, I mean, it's cool because it's like, oh, a Christmas present from Matt's. That's amazing. But the constraints that forces you to have, to me, can be a little pathological, where it's like, this thing isn't quite ready, but the release is coming up. So like, let's cut corners to get it in. I don't know that I'm interested in that kind of forcing function on that. It's like, the stuff that's ready should go in and the stuff that's not should wait. And you should release when you have a set of changes that you think are comfortable for users to upgrade. So I would guess that we wouldn't do some kind of scheduled release. I don't think that Redwood's, I mean, that could make sense for something like Ubuntu or something where there's, zillions of people have to manage the upgrades across like desktop systems. And the complexity of that is mind-bogglingly challenging, and having some knowledge that like, oh, the new version is going to drop on this date so we can prepare in advance and whatnot. I don't know that we're there yet. Maybe down the road when Redwood is used by as many people as Ubuntu, then we could discuss having a scheduled release schedule.
I mean, I feel like really our only constraint that we're working against is we don't want to break things too often, but we don't really know what the definition of too often is yet, given our automatic code modifications and our release notes for upgrading, right?
Yeah,
We want to
the
get
flip
features
side,
out there. We just don't want to annoy people.
right? It's a balance. You don't want to break things so often that people become fatigued and they're like, you know what, I can't. Like, it's too much. I can't always be upgrading like every 2 weeks. Like, it's just I can't do it. It's too annoying. I can't do this anymore, right? But also the doing it once a year, once every 2 years or whatever is also, things pile up too much. So finding some balance in there, and if I had to guess, it would be every 3 to 6 months.
But also think about it, like when you're using Redwood, you're not accruing a whole bunch of tech debt. So that leaves you time to just upgrade Redwood, right? So it's all good.
That's right. That's it. Your code has no tech debt, Danny, right?
Yeah, never. Yeah, sure.
Hey, David, when's that RedwoodJS conf gonna happen?
You know, now that we have Tom here on stage and it's being recorded, should we ask him, pin down a date?
Hey, Tom.
I mean, I do have an opinion on the matter.
Well, I don't know.
Which is this weekend?
We announcing Redwood Conf. I do have the domain redwoodconf.com, which I bought at the same time as I registered redwoodjs.com. So it's been on my mind since the very beginning that we would do conferences. People seem to be getting back in person for conferences now, though with the waves of COVID as they are, it's always a little sketchy still. So I would love to do some kind of a conference. I think this week demonstrates that we have a sufficient amount of content that we could do like a 2-day conference quite easily, with all of the partner meetings that we had and all the discussions that we've had with startups and doing the demos and everything. I think it would be amazing to do an in-person conference. So what's this, April? Could we do one later this year?
October.
Maybe.
October.
Do we know any event planners? Does anyone know how to do that? Anyone know how to put on a conference from scratch?
I do. I've been asking people that run events. I've been asking them who they use. So we have some, but yes, logistics are hard. You know, I am jealous that we met Paul from Supabase on Wednesday 2 years ago. Was that just yesterday? Sorry. And they got together to do their launch week, and I was a little bit jealous because if there's been one downside to doing launch week, it's that I haven't been able to hang out with all of you and kind of celebrate with you as we go. So, although we did have a really nice 2 a.m. Zoom call to publish the website, that was good. That was camaraderie.
Hey, Danny, when are you going to be on the West Coast of the United States?
So that should roughly align with my timeline, because I will be in Canada till September, and then I am free. So there is that nice time slot to drop in the Redwood Conf.
You can do a talk on US versus British phrases. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, I found a new one for my wife. My wife, here's one where when someone's sick, they say that they're poorly. Is that true?
Yeah, this is true. Yeah.
It's not someone's doing poorly. They are poorly, right?
You could say both. You could say both.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which means unwell.
Unwell. Yeah. Sick.
My 3-year-old right now is poorly, like in the poorliest way possible. Yesterday, he's better today, but man,
I think
yesterday was
he poorly it all over you yesterday, didn't he?
Yesterday was something. Let me tell you.
Hey, where are we gonna do this Redwood Conf? Where do you all want to go? That's what I don't. I mean, do we do that? Like, where do we host this thing? East
I mean, you
Coast,
can have it in the
Europe?
redwoods, right? Aren't there redwoods near Tom and David right now?
In the redwoods.
I picked up, no lie, probably 300 little redwood cones from my backyard the other day.
Nice.
We got redwoods.
I mean, California.
There must be somewhere. It must be somewhere in the redwoods area that has like a conference center, right? You can print out.
Oh, Santa Cruz area has. And granted, there were some fires last year, but they have some really wonderful conference centers that are in the middle of the Santa Cruz redwoods.
Bay Area sounds convenient. I guess Santa Cruz is not exactly the Bay Area,
mean-
but you know, Bay Area adjacent at least.
I mean, unless you live on a different continent, but I don't know. Bay Area's there's flights. Let's planes go there.
We have a good airport.
You do Big Sur. Big Sur is pretty nice.
Do we have an initiative to
road
plant
trip
redwoods?
plus Redwood Con? Amazing. Although I've done it before, but I'd still do it again.
Yeah, everyone has to do a road trip, and each day is in like a different location. Redwoods only grow in very specific areas. It's really hard to plant a redwood. Actually, like if you want a redwood to grow somewhere, like it's almost impossible to get it to grow. It just has to want to grow there.
We've got redwoods in England. They're about 20 minutes drive from here. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've
like
heard.
only like, I don't know, probably like 50 of them. They're about 150 years old. It's crazy, but they're very particular.
Hey, you know where is, like right now I want October like to be in North America. Redwood conference would be good, but you know where is kind of middle of the world for our community at the moment? The UK. Just saying that could work. And London has great conference centers and it's a cool city. I don't know, maybe worth considering.
And you can
Says
eat
the
a bunch of
Londoner on the other side of the world right now.
and you can eat a bunch of beans for breakfast. Mm.
And then be poorly afterwards.
Don't forget the blood sausage.
Mm.
And be poorly.
Black pudding.
Remember to lock your bike, otherwise it's getting stolen. I get a lot of abuse from Rob. Basically, when we like weekly, I get these questions. Oh, is it true that this thing happens? Like, yeah, Rob, that's normal, isn't it?
Like in any big city, it's normal, but only in London. Oh, well, what do we? I have no outro. I never want these things to end because it's fun to hang out with you all.
Maybe let's post the email sign up link, the mailing list link one more time. I actually have here. Let me do this. Hold on.
Okay.
RedwoodStartupFund.com. Oh, I can't even type it in my because it redirects. I'll do it here. You have to go there via HTTP though, which is weird. RedwoodStartupFund.com. If you go there, that should take you to the mailing list page. But yeah, it does. So make sure you sign up for future information on Redwood Startup Fund. We'll send an email when we have announcements to make there or additions to the process that we can communicate. And I hope you enjoy playing around with Redwood. And if you have a startup idea, go for it. Give us a ring when it's time and we'll talk about funding.
Hear, hear.
Thank you
Happy
all for
launch
coming.
week,
Thank you
everyone.
all for watching. This has been a lot of fun. I'm super excited. This week went really well, I think, and I'm looking forward to a Redwood version 2.0.
Hear, hear. I could do the videos one more time. Rob hates
You're really
it.
you're really playing these videos to death, aren't you?
Man, I don't. Yeah. We
Well,
don't have to.
it wasn't recorded, I think, the first time around, so it's worth it.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. So we should do it one more time. All right, this will be the, and then I'll close the meeting. Thank you, Tom. What also wasn't recorded was my thank you to you. Redwood literally would not exist, Tom, without your vision, your support, your financial funding, without Preston Warner Ventures, and it's just a blast. I had no idea what this would become. I have no idea what it's going to become, but I am so excited where we are right now and what this group and so many other more in our community have managed to build and create together. Tom, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's been a blast. I've met so many great people in this community. And during COVID, it was so nice to have a project like this to kind of bring me together with new friends. And I love building stuff. I love working on new technology. So this has been a dream for me as well. Thank you, David.
All right. We'll do the outro. Everyone, we'll see you. We'll see you on the internets. Thank you so much. And here we go. Over to you, Rob Cameron.
Does the JavaScript ecosystem leave you feeling like this? Maybe it's time for something new. RedwoodJS. Redwood combines React with GraphQL and Prisma to make what we call an edge-ready framework for the Jamstack. Overwhelmed with Webpack and Babel configuration? Redwood's already taken care of it. Everything talks to each other out of the box, and you can use our generators to write the boilerplate, leaving you to write the fun stuff. Feeling overwhelmed trying to learn yet another JavaScript framework? Redwood has great documentation and an award-winning friendly tutorial to walk you through just about everything you can do with the framework. Tutorial has not actually won any awards. So don't wait. Download Redwood in the next 30 minutes and you'll receive hundreds of NPM packages absolutely free. Redwood is under very active development and should not be considered ready for production environments. Side effects of Redwood may include decreased stress, increased job satisfaction, and a newfound sense of purpose. Visit redwoodjs.com for more information. So talk with your team today and find out if Redwood's right for your next app. Redwood. It's not just a big tree, it's your new favorite JavaScript framework. Look at that. Redwood just went 1.0. It's about time. It's been like 2 years. Huh. How can a tree go 1.0? What? No, the JavaScript framework. Java. Oh, let me instantiate an abstract interface service worker bean. No, JavaScript. Oh. Hey, have you tried building a web app with JavaScript lately? It's a nightmare. Oh man, I know, it sucks. But that's why Redwood's so great. Everything's already set up and ready to go. You can just start building a full stack app, front end and back end. Not have to worry about all that config. Like Webpack? Yeah, it's ready to go. Babel? Included. TypeScript? Yeah, I know. But it's in there. Everything's TypeScripted. TypeScriptable? Okay, but there's a million other things you need for a full stack app. Some kind of SPA library, an API server. If it's full stack, you need access to a database. You gotta have some kind of auth, tests. It's got all that. React, GraphQL, Prisma, Storybook, Jest. Huh. It really does sound like it has everything. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why do they call it Redwood? I don't know. They like trees, I guess. Yeah, trees are cool. Yeah. So you're gonna give it a try? Planting a tree? No, Redwood. Oh, no. I only write Java.
All right. Thank you all. We will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.